Hello and welcome to Mental Wealth Wednesday. We have a dynamic guest with us today, and as you know, we have extraordinary guests each and every month, the fourth Wednesday of each month for Mental Wealth Wednesday. And we have with us Michele A. Yankson, who is a yoga teacher and a lawyer. And she is going to share with us the different programming that she has that helps with mental health and wellness. And I find it so very interesting, just her background and the schools that she's gone to, graduating from New York University School of Law and the University of Michigan, specializing in housing justice and community care. Those two things being true and near to my heart. So I truly appreciate our guest this month. She has a unique consulting practice. Well, she will tell us all about it and how you might be able to join one of her classes if you're in the New York area. So thank you so much, Michele, for joining today. We are sisters in law, and I guess sisters in our efforts to increase awareness about mental health options. So please tell us about your programs and a little bit about you and your practice of law.
Thanks so much, Corey. I'm so honored to be here and so happy to connect on a topic that is so important to me and to so many people. I am a first generation lawyer. My family immigrated to the United States from a small village in Ghana in the 80s. And I grew up surrounded by service. My parents are deeply religious, and serving their community was kind of at the forefront of how they existed in the world. And the very honorable Christian ideas of loving your neighbor as yourself and trying to make the world a better place. So those were the seeds that were planted in me when I was very young. And when it came time to decide what I wanted to do with my career, I started off as a middle school teacher. I taught for 3 years middle school English and language arts in Miami, Florida. And then I felt called to go to law school, mostly just to have another tool in my tool belt as a way to serve communities. As you said, I went to NYU Law. I had a great time there. And I left and started practicing immediately working in communities. I started working in the South Bronx at a public defender's office and then transitioned into housing justice, which is part of the work that I do now. Um, After practicing for some time, I, like many lawyers, was feeling burnt out. I had a lot of passion, I had a lot of work, but I didn't always felt like I had the energy to sustain that. And then due to the pandemic, I ended up finding myself in a break from the law, which at the time was very stressful, but it was also much needed. And it was during that time that I got really into yogic practices and learned that you can change the world by healing your body and by
Mm.
finding mental and spiritual empowerment, just as much as you can change the world by taking on a really great case. So when I started to make that connection, I decided to teach yoga, and I've been doing that ever since, both the yoga and the law. And then about 5 years ago, I had the idea to bridge both of these worlds in the legal consulting practice called Adinkra Consulting. And Adinkra symbols, as many of us know, are harken back to Ghanaian culture. So it is honoring my own culture. And the consulting practice blends legal advice, spirituality, mental empowerment, and nervous system regulation. So when people come and do a consult with me, they're not just learning about the information about their case or their conflict. They're also learning about how to heal their entire system related to that conflict. And I am very excited, very grateful, very passionate about this type of work. And it's what I hope to offer to the world, what I hope to offer to society, to the collective. And I'm glad to be able to do it.
That's a beautiful journey, Michele. I'm
Thank
really
you.
fascinated with this intersection of spirituality and law and justice, and just for you to come into that space from three different pathways, if you will. How did you see them merging? At what point did you see them merging? Just through the pandemic, or was there something more to that?
It was definitely it definitely started with the pandemic when I saw it within myself. I
Mm,
saw that there were ways that I was wanting to change things and that I was wanting to affect things, but without balance, both like emotional balance and then like the balance of the things that are going on in your life, it's very difficult to continue to make that change, continue to be
mm,
forward moving if there's roadblocks getting in the way. And I think it was through that pause and diving more into body based practices, into spiritual practices, where I realized I'm actually a stronger advocate for myself if I've healed. And then I
mm,
started extending that to the people that I represented. And I started to realize that a lot of the problems that people came to me with, maybe they were having an issue with their landlord, or they're having an issue with their boss, or a conflict with the neighbor. There was that conflict, but then there was something else, maybe a trauma from a while ago, maybe a
mm,
limited thought, maybe a body that was really revved up and unable to relax, that was making that conflict worse, that was adding to that conflict. It was both the
mm,
symptom of the conflict and it was maybe exacerbating it. And that's when I thought just representing somebody in their case might not solve the problem going forward if there's these other things at play. And I really believe, and I've said this to many people before, that the role of a lawyer can also be the role of a healer. And there's no
mm,
reason to think that those two things can't go together. Of course, in
mhm,
society, we've conditioned to think that lawyers work to maintain the profits of certain individuals, or they help sort of maintain the status quo, but that's all conditioning. And we don't have to accept that conditioning. And if we, people who are lawyers, want to see their role as healing society, there are ways to do that. And then after I learned when I got my yoga training, I thought, well, I'm thinking about these issues every day. I'm learning about nervous system regulation. I'm learning about breath work. I'm learning about how to ground the body. Why don't I make this a part of my legal practice as well?
mm. So walk us through that a little bit. You have someone who contacts you for services, legal services. How do you introduce the spiritual and the yoga aspects of the services that you provide? Like, for example, do they come in knowing that you do those things and therefore want, the incorporation of all that you do? Or do you in some way introduce it through your consultation of addressing the legal issue?
Well, it actually works in both because believe it or not, I work full time at a nonprofit and have for some time. And the way
Mm,
that I did it in the past worked in both. If I'm meeting somebody who hasn't bought into the style that I'm presenting, it might be more subtle. It might just be after they've gone through something that they're going through that is really trying, I might say, all right, let's take a moment, feel your feet on the ground, relax your shoulders.
mm,
Or if they're unable to speak, or if they're feeling like overwhelmed with emotion, maybe it's okay, like, can we do a breathing practice or something like that? If it's somebody has come straight to me from consulting, like, so that it's not as a part of another institution that I'm a part of, they have to buy into the process. So usually what happens is like somebody reaches out and they tell me the legal problem and I say, that's great. Let's talk about the way that I practice because it might not be what you're looking
mm.
for, or it might not be what you're used to, so that people can make the decision of like, oh, that's like, I just want something straightforward, or like, oh, I'm not really sure about that, versus like, yeah, this is actually, I think, exactly what I need. So that's kind of how it works.
Okay. So, there are so many experiences that people
Mhm.
can have, and even going into adulthood, a lot of people don't realize that they're dealing with or maybe carrying some of the impact of adverse childhood experiences. And you mentioned trauma. I would like to know from your experience and also, again, addressing your clients that come in, how is it a part of your practice or important to know that trauma-based services are essential for addressing issues, even if you aren't direct in, providing yoga or grounding practices during your consultation? Just it seems that you would also have like a keen awareness of someone who may have some trauma based things going on when they come in to present a legal issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's right what you're saying or alluding to is that not everyone's going to come in and be like, this is my ACE score, right? Or like, this
Right.
is all the things that happened to me. Like, usually it's just like, it is something that happens somatically, right? It's either you're having a reaction to the situation that doesn't really match the situation. And sometimes I'm looking for, people using extremes about a situation that might not need extremes, or people being caught in a loop about something that seems to relate back to something else. Those are maybe two examples that come up in like thought patterns. But then other than that, like I was saying before, sometimes it's somatically somebody who's breathing really quickly, somebody who is like uncontrollably crying, somebody who has emotional outbursts. And the truth is, it could also just be related to the legal problem, right? Like I've seen a lot of clients with a lot of abusive landlords, abusive employers, where, yeah, like it could just be, you could just be having a traumatic experience with that. And that's why it's important to uncover. So if I notice somebody who has uncontrollable emotion or somebody who seems to be breathing rapidly or is caught up in a thought pattern, then that's where the questioning comes in and see, is this all about the situation at hand? It might be, and it might be fair and reasonable for it to be, or is this about something else that can be addressed, responded to as well?
We have, again, a lot of things that are going on in our country and around this world, but being that you've been involved in housing justice, representing people with housing issues, what are your thoughts on some of the issues that we see nationally, like in Memphis and Gary, Indiana, where the electricity has been out for a number of days, going into multiple weeks, and the impact that that has on households and um, emotional impact on people and households and communities, because in both of these situations, in Memphis and in Gary, these are predominantly Black, people of color areas, and the belief is that there's like been a slow to act because of that, being in disenfranchised areas, disinvested areas, and not maybe having the political power or economic power to join together to have companies like the electric company or the federal government, if this was a state of emergency for federal relief. um, how does that play into your representation of people with housing issues and dealing with factors like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is an idea of learned helplessness, right? Like there's this idea of like, well, the problems that I see, they just keep on occurring and they keep on occurring to people like me. And so what can I really do about it? And there's an aspect of that that is like just pragmatic. Like you're just being a realist. Like, yes, people like government entities are slow to act in areas where there are poor people of color, poor Black people, period. That is in some way out of your immediate control.
Mm-hmm.
And so for that, in that sense, I think the lens turns to what are the things that are in my immediate control. Well, I can work on being as regulated as possible, or as regulated as the situation requires, so that I can remain focused on fighting back against those systems. So I'm not, and no shade to social media or anything, so I'm not spending my energy like doom scrolling, but maybe I'm talking to my neighbors about what we do. Maybe I'm reaching out to people who might be able to help. And maybe I'm also just realizing the toll that it's taking on me and resting, or getting or finding access to like different ways of mental health. So I think that that's one aspect, is what is in your immediate control. I think that if I envision a world where things like pausing and breathing for a bit become so commonplace, like we're teaching it in schools, we're teaching it to our neighbors, we're teaching it to our kids, the fact that you can tune within to yourself, like that, what is the thing that is within you that cannot be moved and that is unshakable, and that strength of your ancestors that has carried you to this far. And you can use that as a foundation upon which to fight back and upon which to organize. And so there's all different factors that go into this, right? It's like the advocacy, there's organizing. But then I think the part that I feel really focused on and really passionate about is that internal justice, right? Like just like, how do you create a system of justice, social justice within yourself, right? And so I think that that is one thing. And then I think once you come from that place and you have a community of people around you who are also coming from that place, you keep your eye on the prize and you stay consistent and focused towards that goal. And yeah, I mean, what's happening with the electricity being shut off, what happened, I'm from Detroit, Michigan, what happened in Flint with the water crisis for all those times. These things are not coincidences or happenstances. They're structural racism. And so how do we fight structural racism? By caring for ourselves. I think those are the two questions that become important.
I appreciate that. And, good or bad, social media, I like to see the good in social media.
Mm-hmm.
And with even, with different aspects of mental health and having different resources that are available through
Absolutely.
social media, like organizations like Beam, and just knowing about the
Mm-hmm.
activities that they do out in
Mm-hmm.
Los Angeles, and just their efforts, stretching out in other ways because of being on social media, and now having this book that helps Black people with learning about resources and how to address crises for severe mental illness, for example. I really want to get that. It's like the green book of mental health. I forgot the title of it, but definitely going to
Oh.
drop that in the comments for this segment of Mental Wealth Wednesday. And I'll just take a point of privilege now to thank everyone who is joining Mental Wealth Wednesday. We have with us attorney Yankson, who is sharing with us about her practice in housing justice, as well as her yoga services through her, give me the name of it again, of your program, your
Oh,
consulting service.
Adinkra Consulting.
Adinkra Consulting. And I encourage you to look up the services that she provides. She is in New York, and it would be a great experience to just participate in some of the programs that they have available. So today we are just talking in general about mental health and the aspect of how yoga and spirituality and the law can be key components to helping people to move forward through addressing issues, legal issues, personal issues, and now just centering in on housing issues. So we both have, a career in housing. I was a general counsel for a public housing authority for almost 10 years, and had the extraordinary opportunity to work in the general counsel's office for HUD. And so, what I have found within myself, tapping into that self, the introspection, and just understanding where my passion lies, is having a heart for residents, and residents whose voices may go unheard, or barely being heard, and that's slow to act, right? And the residents do tend to try to look within themselves first and acknowledge maybe the minimum power that they have, but knowing about the resources that they can tap into. And so I say that, Michele, because social media is where I saw the strength of people coming together and finding a way to have community. So those individuals who shared what they were experiencing, for example, in Gary, Indiana, that help the algorithm to grow
Mhm.
and to get that out to more people. And then the more that happened, more people could learn about this and get involved in helping. So like the most recent things I saw, I think his name is Keith Lee. He's like a food critic, if you will, a big influencer, and goes to different restaurants telling about their food. But he is helping to spearhead, for example, some getting some resources to the families in Gary, Indiana. And then others just in the community joining together to, food and water or whatever the things that people need in Gary, in Memphis. And so I truly see, like, visualize what you were explaining in terms of finding like our power within and then seeing that in action to address the needs of those who are in Gary, Indiana, and Memphis, Tennessee, dealing with these very real, imminent, in real time situations. So I just wanted to share that with you because as you described it, that's what I was visualizing these most recent posts and what was happening now with those situations, even though some people are still without power. So it
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And I think that, yeah, I agree with that in the sense that like different movements globally can be informed, especially on an international level.
Mhm.
People can learn from what other people are doing to how to create change. Like I know there's like activists in Palestine and activists in other places, or even like a lot about what's happening in Gary. I mean, it's like it seems similar to what's happening in parts of Colombia, where there's like a mostly Black population being affected by basically governments being slow to act, right? And so I think learning about those shared struggles is incredibly important.
Yes, yes. And we can learn a lot from what happened with Hurricane Katrina, right? Like there's just all these different
Yeah.
natural disasters that have happened. And unfortunately, we may not hear until later about the very real and detrimental impact on disinvested communities, marginalized communities, communities that are predominantly Black. And I just really appreciate people using their voices to help in those situations. And I appreciate you using your skill set as an attorney, your skill
Mhm.
set as a yoga practicer, a practice um, person, and helping to find a way to make that available to the community. So you sent me a flyer about something recently that you did with yoga practice. I would love for you
Yeah.
to share with the audience what that was and how often you do it.
Yeah, and I appreciate you too for creating this platform, and I think pretty much everything about it I can tell comes from your heart and that you have such passion um, for it, and that's beautiful. And I think that creates a ripple effect. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So what I had shared with you was a workshop that I am just starting out, to be honest, but that one that I'm very excited about. And it blends know your rights trainings or know your rights information with movement and somatic healing.
Mm,
So the way that it's structured is I spend a period of time, and I think in the future I will invite like, guests that know different areas of the law, but now right now my focus is on housing, employment, and gender justice, so that's what I focus on. I give some like a basic overview, and it's so wonderful for me because I think as a lawyer who's like very steeped in these issues, sometimes I forget like what people don't know, and knowledge truly is power. So it's great to do these sessions and hear people be like, wow, I had no idea that I could do that. So it's part like I give people like basic information on their rights in a subject area. And then after that, we do a meditation, like a little bit of breath work, because I think that if somebody is coming in seeking know your rights information, usually it's related to some situation that they have or some situation they had in the past. And simply by hearing that information, it can create stress in the body. And so the idea is that after we sort of talk through those issues that might be very stressful, very weighty, we then move our bodies to like release that stress and come back to a space where we feel empowered, where we feel relaxed, where we're connected within, and then we can go out and take action from that place. So the workshops are about 75 minutes for like all types of people, all different levels of yoga. Just people who have a desire to learn more about their rights in a particular topic and who want to like move their bodies as well. And the one that I sent to you was in person. I'm like rolling out doing ones that are virtual too for people in different places, or who just don't like to do things in person. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. And the feedback that I got was awesome. And I hope to do another one in September. I haven't solidified the date yet. But yeah, that's that workshop.
Oh, good. That sounds so interesting and that's so creative, like innovative, right?
Thank
Like
you.
a great experiential learning opportunity to learn and move your body, learning about rights, which is again something that's I'm very passionate about. And I just want to know, as lawyer to lawyer
Yeah.
in the housing world, when there are different levels of enforcement for our housing rights, it seems that it can shift depending on who is in office, and that's from the local to the federal level. As an attorney, and just trying to provide the best services to your clients, how do you address, if at all, if you even have to, but how do you address the realities of perhaps a lesser housing enforcement when we have the Fair Housing Act, but different protected classes may not be enforced the same way or at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think that so much of the fight has to be local, right? So I definitely encourage people, like I see my role as a lawyer is like I said, part of it is healing, but then part of it is also empowering people to organize. So
Mhm.
they're not just in isolated going through their problem with their landlord, but they're connected to a network of other tenants, either through a tenant association or something else, something informal, and using that in order to seek change at the local level. Because a lot of times there's like vast differences between what's going on the local level versus what's going on the federal level, as we know. And that can be a way where people feel more ownership and feel more control over like what are, like what you say, the changing tides of policies based on who's in the office at a national level. And then I think, related to that, there are certain things I think that do not change, and that is a person's ability to file a suit or work with somebody else to file a suit to enforce the laws that are on the books.
Mhm.
And that I think has to do with what I was saying earlier, with having that regulation, turning within and using that to take empowered action.
That is a great example of that, for sure. Not to give up before even starting, right?
Yeah,
Or,
even if
preventing
you haven't,
yourself from moving
even if you,
forward.
yeah, exactly, 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. I mean, sometimes it can be overwhelming just if, to your point, in terms of the doom scrolling, right? It can be overwhelming seeing the different things that are being attacked in terms of our laws and different policies, protective policies that have been revoked, repealed. And so that can be overwhelming, maybe scary for people. And I know a lot of lawyers are doing their part to protect the rule of law. Even the American Bar Association is under attack right now in terms of the accreditation process. So there are a lot of challenges, but it seems that each one can do something. What are your thoughts in expanding that? Each one doing something. Once you are tapped into strength within, and joining forth with a community, how can one tap into the right community to try to affect change?
I think sometimes you have to create it as a reality
Mm,
because, like, if you are somebody who is usually, I mean, I won't say usually, but I think it's really powerful because if the seed has been planted into you that is like, I want to do something about it, I want
mhm.
that community, sometimes you might just have to create it. And really, that is like kind of like why the work that I do came from. I was like,
Yeah.
well, I feel like lawyers should be thinking about this more. And I was like, well, I guess I should just start doing it because I
Right.
have that thought and because I have that experience. So I really think that's what it is. If you have that thought, if you're listening to this and something has inspired you, many times you have to be the person to create it. And oftentimes that can just be as simple as walking around in your neighborhood, seeing what spaces are available, seeing what people are available,
Mm.
and getting it started. And then going from there and then building from there. But there's no like, yeah, I really just think that it's like we can all start creating and connecting and that I think is how the change starts. And if I can get woo for a minute, I will just say that it's not even about the actual material thing that is created. I think
Mm.
it's also the energy with which you are creating creates a ripple effect so that people who come into contact with you, if your intentions are pure and your passion is there, they will also tap into that energy with them and within them as well, which is why I think this uh, a series that you do is so important because I think it is an example of just that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's powerful. I really appreciate that explanation. And as you said that in terms of like creating your own, it made me think, I believe, I don't want to butcher her quote, but I believe it was Toni Morrison who indicated like if you can't find the books you want to read, like write your own.
Yeah.
And so just be the change you want to see. That's
Yeah.
something that I've often heard. Be the change you want to see.
Yes.
And we, again, can just feel so, beat down, overwhelmed, or maybe not even see the possibility of what could happen from whatever we may start.
Mhm.
What kind of encouraging words would you give to people who they want to do something, don't know what to do, but see things, on the news or maybe in their community every day that's like, what's the point? Like nobody's going to listen to me. How can I, bring people together or start something? What kind of encouraging words would you give them or something inspiration to know that they can?
Well, after they came back to their breath through some type of breathwork practice or
Ooh,
meditation,
let's breathe
I
first.
would
Let's breathe first.
I honestly, this is just the this is just the first thing that came to my mind, so I'm going to say it. I would encourage people to, if they feel safe, to just walk around their neighborhood and strike up conversations with people and talk
Hmm.
about that desire and see what happens and start building
Mm,
off of that.
mm,
Sometimes I think maybe we overcomplicate things, or sometimes we think there needs to be an event for us to connect with people, but there's just so many people. Well, I guess I'm talking about living in New York City, so let me make this natural. But like, if you are about your day, you encounter people, talk to
yeah.
them, and if it's at your church, if it's at your school, if it's at the grocery store, talk to people. I think
Hmm.
that's like why social media is so popular and is such a beautiful thing is that we are all craving these conversations and we can
Hmm.
have them in real life.
Hmm.
And so I would encourage people to do that.
Yeah.
And then know that you don't have to figure out all the answers overnight. It's a process and just and enjoy and trust it.
Yeah. And just understanding that, we are all human and can do only what we can do. But
Absolutely.
I think in knowing that, just knowing you can do something, no matter
Mhm.
how small or great, everybody can do something to help
Yes.
bring about change or to make others in the community feel safe and comfortable. So, for example, if your electricity isn't out, you can help another family who is by donating your time, donating your money or helping in some kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
And all of it, I'm
100%.
sure, is greatly appreciated, by others who are in dire straits.
That's yes, 100%. That's an excellent point.
So as we have gone moving forward in our careers, how do you see your law practice evolving in this whole space of helping clients not just with their legal issues, but other grounding methods and things of that nature? How do you see that evolving, progressing, kind of the ripple effect from your clients, for example, and what they will do with that experience with you?
Yeah, I hope it will just, and what I have seen is I hope it will just start them on a path of healing. Because if you have a legal conflict, at some point it's going to end, right? Like, hopefully, like at
Yeah.
some point in a year, a couple years, maybe a few months, it will end. But this other part about healing the body, becoming more spiritually attuned, finding empowerment, that is a lifelong journey, right? It's one that
Mm,
I'm on as well. And I'm sure that you're on too. And so, what I've seen is that people start thinking about healing and they start thinking about what works best for them. And it might
mm,
not necessarily be a one on one thing. Maybe it's a group thing. Maybe it's movement related. I'm doing this project that talks about how movement can be essential in mental health. And people have different types of movement: walking, biking,
mhm,
swimming. I like yoga, but there's a whole bunch of other things. So, really, my hope is that it gets people on that journey. So when the next legal conflict or other conflict comes, they can tap into something else than fight or flight, for example, right? So
yes.
that's the hope. And then how it evolves, I think, is a really great question. Like how it evolves outside of that. I hope to be able to just continue to see, individual clients and do workshops. I'm open to other ideas from other people. I'm open for people taking this idea and making it their own in whatever way. Really, just if we can live in a world where people have conflict, because conflict is very important and very healthy, but also heal in the process.
Mm. And help their communities to heal. Like,
Absolutely. Creates that ripple effect. Yes.
yes, yes, I like the ripple effects. It
Yeah.
can be very helpful with just, I guess it's the whole give and take, the pushing back and forth, but just knowing that there is still good in the world where it just seems like there's so much bad happening. I hear about the increase, and maybe it's because of social media, I don't know, but of Black people being hung in different parts of this country, southern
Yeah.
parts of the country, and it's very hard to hear that kind of news, uh,
Mhm.
even if you don't, know the individual. But a
Mhm.
question I often think about is, why does it always seem like it's Black people? Like, I don't hear of any other person this happening to. There was a gentleman last year, was a white male who was found. I think he had some mental health condition that may
Mhm.
have been mentioned in the news and whatnot. But
Mhm.
for the most part, and I guess the key word predominantly, these situations are inclusive of Black people. And so I bring that up because I just feel like there's a lot of overwhelm in communities across this country. The
Mhm.
Haitian community and the efforts to force them to leave this country, even though they've lawfully been here for extended periods of times, and just all kind of groups of people who migrated here to United States for a better life. The
Mhm.
people who founded this country came here to have a better life. They were not natives to this country either. So
Mhm.
I bring that up because we want to have some level of trust in those who are in positions of power, that they will equally disperse that power to all communities.
Mhm.
And with your efforts in bringing healing and justice through your work, your
Mhm.
practice. Um, how can we spread the wealth of power to help all communities? Is that also something that, first comes within and us tapping into others who are like-minded in the community and building a coalition? Uh, how can we expand that to also for those who are in power knowing about this, even though we may not have the economic power to get their attention?
Um, so I think your question is, how do we uh, trust people in power more? Is that essentially it, or
That and getting their attention. Like we want to
how do
know,
we get
like
their attention?
once we have their attention and the things that we're presenting to them, we want to be able to trust that they're going to do something uh,
Yeah,
about what we are presenting. So this is after we've done the self work.
yeah.
We've expanded out into the community. Hopefully, that's
Hmm.
making our voices louder. And now we have the attention, hopefully, of those who can actually do something about it. Um, do we just trust that they will do something about it, or is there some accountability factor to what we're ultimately doing in increasing our efforts to create healing in the community?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we always should hold people in power accountable. And I think part of that is that we should be very courageous and very bold about working to get people in power, which I guess political power, holding political powers of influence. We should always be working to make sure that we have a say in who those people are.
Mm,
Right. So we're voting, and it's like, obviously this is complicated because there's a lot of attacks on voting going around country. But, we are voting not only on a national level, but on a local level. And not
yeah.
only voting, but also trying to see the people but also developing leaders, like people
Mhm.
who we might not think can run for office. Like I know there's been a lot of recent examples of like huge upsets.
Mhm.
And so it's really about shifting this idea about who should be in power and working to create a world where those people can be in power. And then
Mhm.
until then, you just like continue to fight. I mean, there's this like idea in the law about the power of dissents. So, like, even if there's a case and there's a dissent at one period of time, some years later, that dissent can be turned into the majority opinion. And I think it's the same way. As long as you have made a record, so to speak, of fighting back against power that you disagree with, you are creating the playbook, the
Mhm.
guidebook for those who come after you.
Yeah, I like to commend Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson for continuing to whether she's the sole lone dissenter, but giving us a thorough,
Absolutely.
very thorough analysis and leading to her conclusion in her dissent. So I do appreciate that, and I do appreciate
Absolutely.
that answer as well, because I keep honing going back to this word of overwhelmed because maybe I'm feeling overwhelmed, like
Me
seeing
too.
things that are happening, and it just seems like well, it doesn't seem like and I know that it doesn't have to be this way. And I
Yeah.
know that there are so many others who feel overwhelmed. And you
Mm.
you brought up COVID, and that being a time, it was a time of pause. I mean, even the airlines had to pause. Everybody had to pause all
Yeah.
over the world during COVID.
Mm.
And so we may not have another COVID that causes us to pause, but what each thing that we may see on social media or in the news or any disappointment in our lives at work, home, church, can cause us to pause. And I
Yeah.
just want to take this moment to encourage people to pause, without a negative incident happening
Yeah.
that makes you pause,
Yeah.
that you create those times to pause, right? Like
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier, looking inside taking an opportunity to be introspective and
Mm.
seeing where you are. Are you breathing? Are you breathing? Because that is a real thing. Like I have come into situations where I literally realize I wasn't breathing. I
Yeah.
thank God that doesn't happen to me anymore, but that was literally happening to me. And so at some point you have to learn that you need to take a moment to pause because it
Yes.
really can help you to get back centered
Yes.
and to be able to reflect and create a path forward. if we continue to do things out of crisis,
Mm-hmm.
out of trauma-based thinking,
Mm-hmm.
it may not lead us in such a good direction. And so I just bring that up because it just seems like there are a lot of overwhelming things that are going on. And I really want to provide to the mental wealth um, Wednesday community practical tips, like real things. They're not like tips and tools that we might hear
Mm-hmm.
all the time. I really
Mm-hmm.
want to put forth information that people can actually literally try and do, like the experiences that you offer, learning about a legal issue and engaging in yoga. And so with yoga, I just want to ask with this, because I've been through, I guess, two different types of yoga. So is this like the downward dog, that type of yoga, or is it more of the meditative yoga where, yeah, because I went all dressed up thinking I was going to do yoga, like moving my body, the downward dog and all that stuff,
Yeah.
but that's not what that yoga was that I went to. It was more listening to someone, like it was a monk, like a literal a person there. And I think he was more like talking to us, so
Yes.
and explaining things. So what
Yes.
type of yoga do you do?
So that type of like coming together as a community and discussing an issue is a type is yoga too. But
Yeah.
the type of yoga I'm talking about is can include aspects of talking to people and talking to the teacher, hearing the teacher speak, but it is also a physical practice. So it is a movement based practice. And even within the movement based umbrella, like there's still like levels to how much you're exerting yourself. Like some practices are more like you're on the ground and you're, doing stretches and things like that. And then some are like downward dog, warrior twos, doing
Yeah.
push,
Yeah.
like, yoga push-ups. Um, for my classes that I teach regularly, it's more of like an upbeat type, like a faster pace, you're moving more. But the idea is that you're not moving to like keep up with everyone, right? You're moving to when you get to your place of physical exertion, and then you're taking a break and then coming back to your breath. In the workshops, usually it's a little lower key, I guess is the word. It's like there's still some movement, but it's not as strenuous. And I think the benefit of all different types of yoga, if we're talking about the physical yoga, is that it gets you in your body and out of your head. It connects you with your
Mhm.
breath, and it gets you into a state where hopefully you can meditate. Like you were saying, you can take that pause that allows those like truths to come in, allows you to figure out, what do I want to do next? What do I want to contribute to this world? And so you're doing so from that centered state, not from like a state of reaction or crisis.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm glad that you had that experience though, of going to yoga that was not physical, because I think that was
Mhm.
maybe learning for you, even if it
Yeah,
wasn't what
it
you
was. It
were
was.
expecting.
Absolutely. It was a
Yeah.
great learning experience. I even went to hot yoga before that. That was
Oh yeah.
serious.
Yeah. How did
But
you like that?
well, it was good. I haven't gone back yet, but
Yeah.
it was good in terms of, you know, sweating through and just the movement. The stretching is what really helps. And
Yeah.
I just like to encourage people to find what is good for them, because oftentimes it's like this whole self-care, the concept of self-care, $1 trillion business, by the way, um, can be overwhelming in itself, because there's all these things that you supposed to do or could do to call yourself engaging in self-care, when it can
Mm.
actually be just go sit down. Like you don't have to go on some, luxurious trip to an island, or
Absolutely. Yeah.
a spa or anything
Mm.
like that. Sometimes you just need to sit down, turn off the television, the phone, all the things. If
Mhm.
it's only for like a half an hour, to just give yourself
Mhm.
a moment to think freely, not any barriers, not any, problems, just to be able to think, breathe. Maybe you can tap. I just learned about the tap.
Mhm.
I don't know if
Oh
I did it
yeah.
right or not, but just hitting this area right here, can tap away the worry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
just important for us to know that we don't have to do anything. And
Mm-hmm.
I say that with such strength and confidence now because I remember reading a book. I went to this like women's conference of some sort. It was a small type of event, but different vendors were there. And there were these ladies who wrote a book called Just Be. That's it. That was the title. And each page just had a few words on it. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember being upset when I finished reading the book, when I finished reading the book, because I'm like, I don't have time to just be. Like, I got this
Yeah.
list
Yeah.
of things that I need to get done. What does this mean? Just
Yeah.
be. And it feels like over at least like 15 years ago that I read that. And I'm now getting
Yeah.
to a place of understanding why we need to be. We are human beings, not human doers. And I'm not, that's
Mm-hmm.
not unique to me. I've heard that statement before, at least from one of my closest friends all the time. But we are human beings, not doers. And we can just be and allow ourselves to be in order to be more effective in all the things that we want to do, right? Like to
Yeah.
help with this healing justice and
Yeah.
working with others in the community because it can be overwhelming. So we have to learn how to get back to center. Um, some of my work right now is just like researching people from the civil rights movement and even more current social justice movements and the impact on their mental health because
Mm.
it's stressful when you're going against systems, right? It's stressful and noticing how laws are changing and how you have to navigate the legal landscape at any moment. So I really appreciate this conversation. And
Mm.
for all of those who are joining Mental Wealth Wednesday, we have attorney Yankson who has shared with us about her legal practice and her yoga practice, her consulting business, and it's just been a great conversation. And I truly appreciate you just sharing this very, very unique niche that you have created in terms of the intersecting law, spirituality, and yoga and addressing issues because issues are in our tissues and we have
Oh.
to understand how to release these things, right? We have to
Mm-hmm.
learn how to release. And movement is a critically important way of releasing, whether it's like through the shake process. I don't want to beat up the formal names of these things, but I've seen like this shake process to shake
Mm-hmm.
out tension and stress and
Oh yeah.
yeah, just moving. So as we close and just thinking about real things that people, practical things that don't require money, things that, in the midst of trouble and heartache, something that someone may be able to keep to mind um, before they can come to your class, for example, something that they can do that you mentioned earlier in tapping into themselves and giving themselves a moment to connect with themselves. How can a person do that? How can a person connect with themselves? What does that even mean? This might be someone's first time hearing a concept like that. What does that mean and what can they do if they really want to try to do what you encourage them during this call today?
Yeah. I think one thing that everyone could do is put one hand on their heart and one hand on their belly and just
Mm,
feel. So when you do that, you feel your belly react to your breath, and then you're connecting with your physical body, right? And just noticing what comes up for you, either emotionally. But then also, you alluded to this, noticing what comes up in your mind, just letting yourself think. And then
mhm,
maybe after you do that, if you have a piece of paper, you jot it down. It can really be that simple. And I think our own touch is just one way that we connect with ourselves and we give ourselves love, giving yourself a hug,
Mm.
And then another thing that I would maybe recommend or maybe suggest, and this kind of came up when you were talking about that we could just be like, and why can't we just be? I always do this in my classes, and it's always interesting to me. And it's interesting when I practice as well. Somebody comes into like a forward fold, so that just basically means they're like bending over, folding towards the ground, and then practice coming up as slowly as possible to standing. And I guarantee when I do this, when some students do it, there's always a rush. And when I've
Mm-hmm.
done it, I've been like, wait, why am I rushing through this?
Right.
Like, why is it so hard for me to just take my time? As if there's like somebody with a timer. It's like, oh, I got something to do. It's like just that
Yes.
practice of like, let me just move as slowly as possible just for these like 30 seconds. And then whatever does come up for you is information.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are two very basic ways. And, you can do that and go right back into your life, like whatever it is. But I think it builds, it's like, because a lot of these things are about baby steps. And I think that's like the first step of connecting with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. And I'm just thinking of this young mother that I saw in Gary, Indiana,
Mm,
who was charging things in her car. And, they went out to get food like during the day and things of that nature. But I thought about that because whether she knows it or not, she likely took a moment to think of what to do, not only for herself, but for her children. And I'm bringing this up because some of us may be thinking of what we need to do or don't know that we need to stop and just think of what we need to do next. But I encourage those who are in the positions to do so that while you may have thought, like this young mother, I can just go charge, my phone and whatever else in the car so we can have it throughout the night. There may be people with mental health conditions, other disabilities, seniors who don't know that that's something that they could do or don't know how to do it. So
mm,
I'm encouraging you based on, some of the things that we talked about today.
yeah.
We look inside and see what we can do to help ourselves, maybe help our immediate families, but being able to expand that out to the community and helping to have a broader healing in the community and
Mm,
help maybe your neighbor that might be a senior or a person with a disability to
mm,
know that they can do the same, or maybe you can charge it for them or something like that. So
mhm,
throughout this devastation that's going on in our country and specifically in Gary, Indiana and Memphis, Tennessee, I just encourage people to please also check in on those who are seniors who may not have anyone and those with disabilities who may not have anyone to help them and to guide them and lead them to the bigger community that is providing resources. So, with that, Attorney
beautiful.
Yankson, I would love for you to share any closing remarks with our audience today.
Well, I think what you just said was so beautiful and so true. And it's about really reflecting on how we can become more empowered within, but also about bringing in like the most vulnerable people around us
Mhm.
and bringing them into. And then also, I think a lot of it is about giving ourselves a break.
Mm.
We might be doing more that's right or that's good than we think. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's about letting that be enough and giving ourselves the time and space to consider what we might do next.
Yes. Thank you so very much, Attorney Yankson. And I do have to just say this because I feel like I'm really emotionally connected to this conversation today. I even feel
Oh,
like I need to dab my eyes, but I'm just
oh,
having so many memories about Hurricane Alicia. That was in,
mm,
I think, the late 80s or so, and I lived in Houston, Texas at the time. And
mm,
I was home alone after the devastation. And I'm thinking about how I walked to the store and it was just desolate. It was like walking through a Western movie with, things rolling
Oh,
and the store just being empty and people were waiting for water and stuff like that. And so
yeah.
when I made this plea to help others and thinking about seniors who may be in that same situation or people with disabilities
Mm,
who may be not knowing how they can get help. And so I just had that thought of how as a kid I went out
mm,
to try to get water and things like that because my mom had to still go to work even though there was this hurricane and power was out throughout Houston. She still had to go to work, and so I was home alone to get the water and things of that nature. um,
yeah.
so there's a lot that has happened since the 80s, but what one thing's for sure is that we will continue to have natural disasters and we can continue to help and support each other through them all. So thank you again.
Oh,
Thank
and
you.
I love that memory, and I think little Corey is probably so proud of you right now. And it's like you bring, like I said before, you bring so much heart into what you do, and it is truly felt. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you to our audience today. Hope that you've learned a lot about the services that Attorney Yankson has. And I'll put her information in the comments so that you can reach out to her if you're in the New York area. Or, as she said, she may start doing online yoga services. So you could tap in that way as well. So thank you again. And it's been a pleasure with this very beautiful conversation. And again, I'm just in awe at what you've created, and I look forward to seeing it expand and grow.
Oh, thank you. Likewise. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Bye,
You're
everyone.
welcome. Bye bye.
Join us for Mental Wealth Wednesdays, a live platform dedicated to mental health, awareness, and support.
We can talk about mental health generally, and it's such a large umbrella that encompasses so much. But on this platform, we are focusing on severe mental illness and the treatment and the resources.
We meet every fourth Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, hosted by the one and only Corey Minor-Smith. Each session features powerful influencers, advocates, and change agents who are making a real impact in the mental health space. These conversations aren't just meaningful, they're transformational, they're informative, empowering, and life-changing. Join us for Mental Wealth Wednesdays, a live platform dedicated to mental health, awareness, and support.